The cold drizzle of a typical London evening soaked through my coat as I stepped into the hidden mews of Wilton Row. It felt like stepping back in time, the cobblestones and colourful cottages lending a quaint charm to the setting. I was here on a mission of curiosity and perhaps a bit of thrill-seeking, drawn to the Grenadier by its reputation as one of the most haunted pubs in London. Pushing open the heavy wooden door, I was immediately enveloped by the warm, inviting atmosphere of the pub. The scent of aged wood and the murmur of conversations greeted me, but it was the sense of history that truly captured my attention. Yellowed newspapers detailing the pub's haunted past adorned the walls, and in a corner, a small crucifix hung discreetly to ward off harmful spirits. I took a seat at the bar, ordering a pint and striking up a conversation with the barman. He regaled me with tales of the Grenadier's ghostly encounters, his eyes twinkling with a mix of amusement and respect for the stories. As the night wore on, the pub emptied, leaving just a handful of patrons scattered around the dimly lit room. Feeling adventurous, I asked the barman if I could take a look around. With a knowing smile, he handed me a flashlight and pointed me towards the cellar. "Good luck," he said, half in jest. "And watch out for Cedric." The cellar was a different world altogether. The air was cooler, and the walls seemed to close in, their ancient stones whispering secrets of the past. As I descended the creaky steps, the flashlight's beam revealed shelves lined with dusty bottles and crates. The sense of being watched was almost palpable. I reached the bottom of the steps and turned towards the wooden lockup where spirits and tobacco were stored. As I approached, a sudden drop in temperature made me shiver. My breath fogged the air, and I felt a presence beside me. Bobby, the landlord's black cat, suddenly appeared, his fur standing on end as he hissed and arched his back. Before I could react, the ashtray on the shelf beside me flew past my head, smashing against the wall with a force that made me jump. An icy fear gripped me. Unlike anything I had ever experienced, the shadows seemed to pulse and dance, and a low, mournful sigh echoed from the bricked-up tunnel in the corner. Heart pounding, I raced back up the stairs, nearly tripping in my haste. As I burst into the warmth of the pub, the barman looked up, concern etched on his face. "You all right, love? You look like you've seen a ghost." I managed a shaky laugh, but the lingering chill in my bones told me I had experienced something beyond the ordinary. Determined to capture the moment, I decided to take a photograph of the cellar entrance. The flash illuminated the room for a brief second, and I quickly reviewed the image on my camera. There, in the dimly lit doorway, stood the faint outline of a figure, a young man with a dark handlebar moustache and what appeared to be a fez-like hat, gazing directly at me with a doleful expression. My heart skipped a beat as I realised I had captured the image of the infamous subaltern. Despite the unsettling encounter, I couldn't help but feel a deep affection for the Grenadier. The sense of history and the unexplainable phenomena only added to its charm. As I left the pub that night, I knew I would return, drawn back by the mysterious allure of this timeless haunt. The next few weeks were a blur of routine and responsibility, but the Grenadier lingered in the back of my mind, a whisper of curiosity that refused to be silenced. I found myself researching the pub's history, poring over old records and accounts of its spectral inhabitants. The more I learned, the deeper my fascination grew. The Grenadier was not just a pub, it was a repository of stories, a place where the past and present coexisted in a delicate balance. I read about the subaltern who had been beaten to death, a tragic figure whose restless spirit was said to haunt the pub each September. I learned of Cedric, the playful but occasionally malevolent ghost who seemed to take particular delight in tormenting unsuspecting patrons. One particularly cold evening in November, I decided to return to the Grenadier. The streets were slick with rain, and a dense fog had settled over the city, muffling the sounds of traffic and giving the night an eerie, otherworldly quality. As I approached Wilton Row, the familiar sense of stepping back in time enveloped me once more. The pub was quiet, a stark contrast to my previous visit. A few regulars sat hunched over their drinks, engaged in low conversations. The barman, the same one from before, greeted me with a nod and a smile. "Back for another round of ghost hunting?" he asked, his tone half teasing, half serious. I smiled back, feeling a mixture of excitement and apprehension. Something like that, I replied. I couldn't resist the lure of the unknown. He chuckled and handed me a pint. Well, you've come to the right place. The Grenadier has plenty of unknowns to go around. As I sipped my drink, I noticed a woman sitting alone at a table near the fireplace. She was engrossed in a book, her long hair falling like a curtain around her face. Something about her seemed familiar, and after a moment I realized she was the woman from the photograph I had seen in my research, a historian who had written extensively about the Grenadier's haunted history. Summoning my courage, I approached her table. "Excuse me," I began. "Are you Dr. Emily Foster?" She looked up, her eyes widening in surprise. "Yes, I am. And you are?" I introduced myself and explained my interest in the pub's history and hauntings. To my delight, she invited me to join her. For the next hour, we exchanged stories and theories, our conversation flowing effortlessly. Emily's passion for the Grenadier was contagious. She spoke of the subaltern with a mixture of sadness and reverence, describing how his tragic end had left an indelible mark on the pub. She also shared her own experiences with Cedric, recounting how the mischievous spirit had once locked her in the cellar for several hours. As the evening wore on, the pub grew quieter, the patrons dwindling until only a handful remained. Emily and I continued our conversation, lost in the rich tapestry of the Grenadier's past. Eventually, the barman approached us with a grin. "Looks like you two are the last ones standing," he said. "Time to close up." We glanced around, realizing how late it had become. Emily gave me a warm smile. "It's been a pleasure talking with you. If you ever want to explore the Grenadier further, let me know. I have some access to areas that are usually off-limits." I thanked her, feeling a sense of camaraderie and a renewed determination to uncover the secrets of the Grenadier. As I stepped out into the foggy night, I couldn't shake the feeling that my journey with this haunted pub was only just beginning. Over the next few weeks, I found myself visiting the Grenadier more frequently. Each visit brought new discoveries and deepened my connection to the pub's history. Emily and I became fast friends, often meeting to discuss our latest findings and share stories of our encounters with the supernatural. One evening in late December, Emily suggested we conduct a more thorough investigation of the pub. Armed with cameras, recording devices, and an array of ghost hunting equipment, we set out to document the paranormal activity that seemed to permeate the Grenadier. The pub was closed for the night, giving us free rein to explore its nooks and crannies. The barman, who had become something of an ally in our endeavours, provided us with keys to the cellar and upper floors, cautioning us to be careful. As we set up our equipment, the atmosphere in the pub shifted. The familiar warmth gave way to a palpable tension, as if the spirits within were aware of our intentions. We started in the main bar area, where Emily recounted stories of objects moving on their own and disembodied voices whispering in the dark. Our recording devices picked up faint murmurs and occasional bursts of static, but it wasn't until we ventured into the cellar that the real activity began. The temperature dropped sharply and a sense of unease settled over us. Bobby, the landlord's black cat, appeared once more, his fur bristling as he hissed at something unseen. We set up cameras to capture any movement and placed a recorder on the shelf where the ashtray had flown past my head during my previous visit. As we waited in the cold, dark cellar, the silence was broken only by the soft hum of our equipment. Suddenly, a low moan echoed from the bricked-up tunnel. Emily and I exchanged a glance, our breath fogging in the frigid air. The moan grew louder, more distinct, and then silence. We waited, straining to hear any further sounds, but the cellar remained eerily still. Just as we were about to move on, a series of soft, deliberate footsteps echoed around us. The sound was unmistakable, and it sent a shiver down my spine. I glanced at Emily, who nodded, her expression a mix of excitement and apprehension. We followed the footsteps, which seemed to lead us deeper into the cellar. The sense of being watched grew stronger, and I felt a cold breeze brush past my cheek. It was then that the ashtray once again flew off the shelf, narrowly missing Emily and shattering against the wall. The sudden noise jolted us, and we both took a step back. Emily's eyes widened as she pointed towards the bricked-up tunnel. There, in the dim light, we saw the faint outline of a figure. It was the same young man I had captured in my photograph, his expression sad and haunting. He stood motionless for a moment, then slowly began to fade, his form dissolving into the shadows. The cellar fell silent once more, the air heavy with the weight of his presence. Just as Emily and I started to process what we had seen, a chilling whisper echoed through the darkness, sending shivers down our spines. Leave, or suffer the same fate. Our hearts pounded in unison, the ominous threat lingering in the air. We backed away slowly, the sense of dread growing with each step. This was just the beginning, to be continued if you dare. Don't miss out on the next chapter of our ghostly adventure. Hit the subscribe button, ring the notification bell, and stay tuned for more.